Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Well, it is finally here, the last week of the regular season. The Cavs have officially clinched home court in the first round of the playoffs. We will just need to wait and see if they get up to the 3 seed or if they stay in the 4 seed. Joining me today to discuss all of that, as well as two funky games from the Cavs, is my co-host Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good. This was some we're in silly season, for sure. The Memphis Grizzlies tied an NBA record for most threes in a game. They had 97 or 87 points from the 3-point line in a game they lost by 16. The Cavs, in both of these games, fell behind pretty big at various points, or certainly didn't take command of the games. And then all of a sudden did. And I don't know what to make of much of it. We had a bigless game one of the back-to-back and a guardless game two of the back-to-back, with a few folks sprinkled in here and there. And yeah, just overall,
at least of the core guys.
Yeah,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Just kind of there's a degree of silliness going on here, but nothing to talk about. But I do think if you're comfortable with this, I would like to zoom out right away and just kind of ask the big question, which is there's 3 games left. The Cavs have locked up home court advantage. They are functionally 2 games back of the Knicks because the Knicks have the tiebreaker. So even though they're 1 game back, it's really 2 because you have to
Right.
you have to have a better record than them at the end of the year in order to get the 3 seed, which I don't even think this is really a gamesmanship conversation as much as a prep for the rest of the season conversation, which is, do you just kind of say, hey, let's just completely shut it down? Anyone who's got something lingering, let's just give you a week or 2 off, knowing that, the playoffs are grueling. Because when you look at the injuries that we know about that this team is suffering, you have Sam, who's been dealing with the hamstring, Tyson with the toe, Donovan's dealt with the groin. He downplayed the ankle after giving us quite the scare on the first leg of this back-to-back. Jarrett's still dealing with the knee. Dean's dealing with the ankle. Max hurt his wrist yesterday and is still working his way back from the foot injury. Harden, I almost forgot he had the broken thumb. On his non-shooting hand.
I think we're past that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. I have no idea, but we know he was dealing with it, and hard for that stuff to get better when even if it can't get worse when you're playing. And then Evan has dealt with the calf at various points in the season, and it just kind of makes me wonder, like if you're at the point where you are, continuity kind of feels like a fever dream at this point. So does it make sense to you, Justin Rowan, who, neither of us get to make this call and neither of us should make this call, but what would you do?
I hate this
because you don't like shutting it down generally.
I really don't. Everything in my being is telling me go for the 3 seed, try to win. At the very least, let's try to get some usable tape against Atlanta, because right now it looks like the most likely outcome is that the Cavs are going to be playing Atlanta in that 4-5 series. I'd like to feel some things out. I'd like to use that as almost an opportunity to get a feel for what that series could be. I just don't know if that's in the best interest of the team given the injuries that they have, right? And I think ultimately it needs to be a decision from the medical staff. But my desire to get usable film, to kind of work towards figuring some stuff out for the playoffs, trying to work on chemistry and continuity, at this point, it feels a little bit like when I would go into an exam in college and I'd just crack open that textbook right before and just look at a few things right before I go in. I don't think any of that stuff's actually getting retained here. Like it's the muscle memory. You're not going to gain it in these last 3 games. I still kind of have the theory of, hey, the earlier you play Boston, the less likely it is that Jason Tatum has his legs under him. But I think you've made really good points in the past when we've talked about this. In that, hey, the Cavs need time to get healthy. They're going to need some time to figure things out as well. And while I don't think anything is guaranteed in the playoffs, and I think some people have almost adopted that mentality when it comes to, hey, if you're in the 4 or 5, you can make it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think that that's necessarily the case, but I just think my dream of achieving more continuity and these guys actually getting the level of reps that they need to get prior to the end of the regular season is simply that. It's a dream.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at. The NBA playoffs are scheduled to begin. The earliest the Cavs could play in the postseason would be April 18th. The play-in tournament is the 14th through the 17th, and we know the Cavs are not going to be in that. And my guess is that they will play on the 18th, just because they don't have to find out who their opponent is in the play-in.
I think that's how the scheduling has
typically that's how that has shaken out historically. But if you kind of just say, hey, if you are someone we're expecting to be in our playoff rotation, or you're just someone who's dealing with a lingering issue, we're shutting you down the rest of the year, and we'll see you on April 18th. That gives you 12 days off between from today to that day. I mean, maybe it's 11, I guess, technically, because you can't really count today if you played today. But I also just wonder if, hey, if you can give them that week of shutdown, then you can do a week of ramp up of practice during play-in week. And
that's a good point.
And maybe you can be a little bit more aggressive with your playoff prep, knowing that you don't have to have guys wrapped in bubble wrap to the same extent. These aren't the most fun conversations to have, but I do think they matter, especially in the wake of the team being asked about this kind of stuff. And again, I really don't think this is a gamesmanship conversation, Justin. I think if the conversation was, should the Cavs try to duck the Celtics? I think both of us are big basketball juju guys and don't like doing that kind of stuff too much.
No.
And I think if that was the tenor of the conversation, we'd both probably feel otherwise. But I really do think this is just about optimizing, especially with some of these soft tissue things that just need time and extra rest. I just don't know if you're getting meaningful data with Dean Wade, coming out there at 75 or 80%. He's getting on court reps right now in his recovery, but it's just not going to be full speed. And in many cases, the teams you're playing, April 12th against Washington, I just don't think you're really you're not simulating a playoff environment.
That one you're not getting anything from. No.
And Atlanta does need to win these games for what it's worth. They are only 1.5 up on Toronto right now.
Okay, let me ask you about that, because Atlanta has been really hot. I still feel pretty good about the Cavs in a playoff series. I think I'd pick the Cavs in 5.
Yeah, by the way, Toronto has the tiebreaker with Atlanta.
There is a segment of people when you look at discussions online that do fear Atlanta because of how hot they are, and I've seen people even draw kind of a parallel to the Pacers, right? Which I don't think is a perfect parallel in any way. But do you think there's something to, hey, if we have the opportunity to make it so that one of the hotter teams in the league isn't playing us in the first round, does that factor into your decision making at all?
I don't think it does, because one, I don't think that you can count on just sweeping that 2-game home and home with them, because they're playing so well. So even if you bring everyone out, you're not guaranteed by any means to win that. And then again, I just don't think that's the way you should be thinking. That's like reverse gamesmanship. It's the cleaner
No, it's
version of game.
not. It's
Like
making the most of the games that you have.
I think it's like a cleaner version of gamesmanship. Like it's like an easier to justify one. But like if you think playing Atlanta will make your team better and more prepared for the playoffs, that's one thing. And playing all your guys in those games, that's one thing. If you're like, oh man, it'd be really nice to not have to play Atlanta in the first round, then I just don't think that this team and it's weird because I've kind of talking out both sides of my mouth here because on one hand I'm like this team needs to show more to show that they're a title contender. And if you're in that,
are you feeling good, balanced on that fence there, or
no, I'm challenging myself a little bit here. That's what I'm trying to do. Unlike you, I actually challenge my own opinions and thoughts. No, that's not true. But yeah, like I don't know. It's a weird spot, but I think I would just make the decision. I would lean towards health. If Dean and Jalen had played in these games, okay, maybe now it's like, okay, well, we're seeing them. They're feeling good. It just feels like the ramp up process probably can happen in the form of a mini pre-playoff training camp if they're even ready for that,
Yeah.
And to some extent, this conversation might be stupid because maybe Dean and Jalen aren't going to be ready to play, and then it's really just a discussion about the core guys who probably were going to be scheduled for some rest anyway the rest of the way. So, this all might be moot, but I thought it was a worthwhile thing to open with because it is kind of the most important thing that we're going to see the rest of the regular season is what they decide to do, what they're able to do.
Yeah, and I think sometimes these decisions get made for you, right? Like I think the Cavs dealt with that last season where Kenny talked about, hey, my goal here is for us to ramp up the minutes, right? Like that we are actually after a season of managing the minutes, we're going to ramp it up, try to get ourselves ready for the playoffs. But the Cavs basically had, that 24 game road trip functionally where they didn't play two games in the same city for 2.5 months. And it wore the entire team down, right? They still ended up finishing the season pretty strongly, right? For all the narratives of Indiana finishing hot and the Cavs struggling. They finished with a better record and a better net rating than the Pacers. So I don't think any of that stuff necessarily matters to the same extent. But and the other part of it is, I don't care how much of a ramp up you do. If you have a week off between the end of the regular season and game one of the first round, then you sweep a team in the first round and you get some days off before the second round starts. What you did at the end of March from a conditioning standpoint isn't going to be that big of a factor anyways, right? The whole approach to the playoffs, I think, has kind of changed for teams with the plan. And I think having the benefit of that week and the point you made about, hey, if we are at a point where these guys really could benefit from some time off to rest and recover, getting that rest and recovery out of the way first, and then functionally having a mini training camp and that ramp up to the first round, that does sway me a little bit because now you're getting the rest out of the way first and you can kind of hit the ground running from a training standpoint rather than we're playing these games and then our week off is truly just a week off. I would be leery if that's the way it was approached because I do think, even though I feel good about a matchup against Atlanta, I would be a little leery if you're coming in completely cold where they really have to battle to get this seeding in the first place and then keep it.
Yeah, it's not this is not an easy time, in terms of decisions. One factor we didn't discuss, by the way, is both Atlanta games are national TV games. Wednesday is on ESPN, Friday is on Prime Video. So I won't pretend to. I never can remember what the rules are for injury designations and rest designations for national games in this current rule set. So I won't weigh in other than just to note it.
Some guys will be playing for sure, right? Like it won't be a complete shutdown, but it also won't be what we were kind of hoping that we could get when we were back at the All-Star break, which was an opportunity for this team to really find its stride and find kind of that chemistry and continuity on both ends of the floor, they're going to have to figure it out on the go. They're not going to be at that peak level where this team is in sync and playing its best basketball. And we know that teams move fastest when everyone's in sync. Carter, Zoom Workplace keeps meetings, chats, documents, and more together so your workflow is like a perfect play. Keep work moving and zoom ahead with Zoom Workplace. Now, I mentioned how obviously going into the playoffs, I don't think anyone's going to say this is the best version of Cavs basketball that we've seen over the last couple of years. That being said, I'm not going into this with a low level of confidence. I would prefer to have seen a little bit more than what we have to this point, but I think ultimately what makes me feel good about a potential first round series versus Atlanta is the core that this team has. And I think we saw it in both of these games. Granted, Indy and Memphis are not trying to win these games, right? But both of them were missing so many of their players.
Yeah, there's a really cool website that was that I thought was interesting with with a lot of conversation about who's being rested, who's not, or who's hurt, who's on the floor. It's moneyonthefloor.live, and it just literally takes the aggregate salaries of the players active in the game. Indy had 23 million in salary on the floor yesterday.
Oh my goodness!
And Memphis had 32. So you're not wrong,
right? But I do think having the one game where the two guards played there, and then the next where the guards were out and the bigs played, I think it just once again kind of shows what the floor is of this group, and I think that ultimately in the playoffs, talent wins out. And the Cavs have such a talent advantage when it comes to those top guys in a lot of these playoff series, right? And even against some teams like New York, I feel better about the Cavs core guys than I would about Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns core. I still feel like that's something that's vulnerable. We likely aren't going to get a playoff series versus them, but just in a vacuum, I feel really good about the fit of James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen. And I think it's understandable that both of these games, given how weird those lineups were, even in a season where we have had so many guys out, we usually had at least one of the bigs and one of the guards, right? And I think if it was staggered that way, you probably wouldn't have got off to such a rocky start in both of these games, but it's going to take you a little bit of time to figure out, all right, what does Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen without Don and James look like? What does the inverse of that look like? To me, it was understandable, particularly with both of these teams getting off to hot shooting starts. Indiana cooled off as the game progressed, while Memphis, let me just say this. I really hope at some point, like a couple of years from now, when it's removed from this game, some highlight account cuts up a film of all those Memphis makes, but crops the score out just so that it looks like the Cavs versus the Hawks in the playoffs, where it's just like, wow, look at this historic night from the Memphis Grizzlies. I really want to see that at some point in my future because they did not cool off.
I'll tell you who catches some smoke for me is Cam Spencer. Turned down a wide open corner three to take a contested one. That was probably number 30 for them. And really what I wanted, I found myself, especially once I knew the Cavs definitely had the game in hand, I did kind of want to see that record broken just so Boston wouldn't.
I was cheering for it. I was flat out cheering for it.
Yeah, just so Boston wouldn't
Tyrese
have
Proctor
it.
fouled and the pass after the whistle went in. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my goodness. Very, very silly. You got to find the things to latch onto late in the year. But you're right. I do think the floor conversation is an interesting one because, I think we've made no secret about having some qualms with how the team has played as of late. And then you look at it since the Harden trade happened, they're 18-8. They have a +5 net rating, the fourth best offense in the league. And we at really no point in that stretch have been super happy about how they're playing.
Nope.
I don't know quite what to make of that. Their +5 net rating would be 10th in the league since February 6th. I
think it's just consistent standards. I think what we are trying to figure out from this season isn't, are the Cavs good at basketball? We know
Fair.
that this core is really, really good at basketball, and I think it's a credit one to the floor that Donovan Mitchell has provided this season. That we have used 39 starting lineups this season, and we are still going to win 50 games. That is bonkers. He has been phenomenal. Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, what they have been able to do to help elevate this team from a defensive standpoint in a season where statistically the perimeter defense and the personnel available to them on the perimeter defensively is worse than it was last year. And it's a credit to James Harden for coming in and having the basketball IQ to make a transition this seamless for a guy that is taking over such a large true usage for this team when you factor not only his scoring possessions, but what playmaking responsibility he shoulders. That's not easy at all. So I think they all deserve a lot of credit for it. And any critiques or concerns that we have, I basically am viewing this as a what will it mean when we're playing the Boston Celtics, right? Like to me, that's where my mind has been in all of these conversations because I do think if this team gets clicking and they're playing well, I don't worry about other teams in the Eastern Conference in the same way. I'm trying to judge the Cavs versus to me what is the standard in the Eastern Conference, which is Boston.
That's an interesting. I don't think I have that same opinion. I think this is one where we're a little different. I'm judging them again. I'm thinking about the Detroit matchup. I'm thinking about like because I kind of am like in a spot where I'm almost got the Celtics on the back burner mentally. Like it's almost like I'm at a point now where I'm like, I'll worry about the Celtics when we get to the Celtics. I want to see them put it together against the Hawks, and like, boy, are we gonna look stupid if they just you know burn the Hawks off the floor in 4 games.
I'm picking 5,
I
but
will
go
not
on.
be. But at least I don't think so. I'll have to. I still have to. I don't know nearly enough about this iteration of the Hawks, which is weird because they're just so different structurally from what we've seen historically. But like I do think like that'll change the math a little. But yeah, I'm in kind of short term thinking with this Caps team. I'm thinking about the next series in front of them. And kind of until they
I,
kind of
I I
prove that
think
they.
that's the right mentality. And to be clear, I do think that they can lose to Detroit, right? Like I think they could lose in the second round. I think they could lose to New York. But what I'm saying is I think if they are playing to the top of their capabilities, Boston's the one team where if I'm getting like a 95th percentile type performance out of this Cavs roster, do I think they can beat Boston or do I think that they would? I think if the Cavs are playing at their best, they are going to beat these other teams.
I
We
just
don't know
don't.
if that's going to be
Hold
the
on.
case, but I'm thinking of it just from kind of a matchup and that kind of standpoint because if you judge them against Boston in your mind of are they prepared for this, it's going to answer some of your questions about can they play at the level they need to in order to beat Detroit or New York.
I think I figured out why I don't agree with you on this. It's because you that sentence right there, the Cavs at their best can do X, Y, and Z. I feel like I don't really have a good sense of what this team's ceiling is still. I don't really know
It's
what
fair.
their best is. Because I mean, I hope we haven't seen it, like, because we really haven't had like more like. I mean, and when I say that, we haven't seen it over the course of like 3 or 4 games, really at any point this season, except against
Right.
some pretty beat up teams in February, and that was before James was really settled in.
I think they have a 500 record versus teams with a winning record since the All Star break, right? Like they haven't played many of them, and we talked about that before, but it didn't necessarily go great in all of those.
So I think that's really where I'm at. I don't have a good sense of who they are, and I'm going to use the first round of the playoffs, and I mean, hopefully, I get to use the second round of the playoffs as a way to evaluate who they are and really learn kind of in real time. But of course, the health remains the variable factor there.
Mhm. And I think to advance it's going to mean something. I think your first round series, whether it's Atlanta or someone else, I think you're going to have to play well. I think that the Eastern Conference is a lot stronger this season than it's been in the past. And while all of these teams are flawed, they still bring something to the table. They all bring an identity to the table, and the Cavs are in the process of figuring out exactly what theirs is, right? Like sometimes they're borrowing from last season. Sometimes it's, hey, we're riding what James does for us, right? Because in a lot of ways he can be a one man style and identity in his own right. So I think that is kind of intellectually like one of my biggest concerns when it comes to this type of a run. But I do think that whether it's winning a first round series, whether it's advancing beyond the second round, I think they're really going to have to earn it. I don't think there's any free passes in this year's playoffs.
I totally agree. I do want to talk. I want to move, and we probably won't spend a lot of time talking about this game. I do want to talk about some other macro trends. And one
Mhm.
thing we really haven't dived in yet on dove in. I don't know. Don't
Yeah.
challenge me.
Both. Yeah.
On is Jarrett Allen since he's returned. Like we've generally been like, oh, that's nice to have him back. We missed you, Jarrett.
Very
We're
productive in 18
yeah,
minutes. Usually is it.
we're worried about your knee, but we haven't really talked about his play and like how we feel like if this is what it is, like if this is about the health he's going to be at, like how do we feel about it? I just pulled it up. He's played just under 86 minutes in the 4 games since he's been back. Per 36, he is averaging 27, 15 on 71% shooting from the field. My eye and 2.6 stocks as well, 1.3 blocks, 1.3 steals per 36.
Yeah.
And I'm in this weird spot, and I'm just kind of curious what you think about this, where my eye is showing me that he's not quite as bursty vertically since he's come back. Not as many above the rim finishes, and when they're above the rim, maybe a half inch shorter. And it's been reported he's still dealing with knee pain. And
Mhm.
generally, when you're dealing with knee pain, if a layup suffices, you will pick that over exploding for a massive poster dunk. Um,
Yeah.
and
I think there's some self-preservation for
yes,
sure when
and
it when
and
it when it comes to him.
my
To
question to
m
you is
Yeah.
like, do you if this version of Jarrett is what we're getting in the postseason, like maybe with a few more minutes, he ended up playing 25 tonight, which I think is the most he's played
Yes.
since he's been back. Like if this, but with less minutes restriction, do you feel as good? Do you feel because the numbers remain ridiculous? Like how do you feel about Jarrett going into the postseason?
I'll take it. When I consider how hurt some of the Cavs core guys have been over the last couple of years, right? Whether it's him playing with the broken ribs in that Magic series, even though he was able to be very productive, obviously it ended up limiting him for the rest of the playoffs and then ultimately taking it out. Donovan on his calf, Darius with his toe, Evan with his calf, right? Like all the injuries that they've had, I will take this. I will take this if this is the best
You'll
case
take 27
scenario.
and 15 per 36.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Like to me, from a physicality standpoint, what's encouraging is the quick twitches and stuff when he's on the court. I feel like he's moving very well in those situations. It's not hesitating him. It's not causing hesitation going for a loose ball and things like that. And to me, that's a very, very encouraging sign. I do think that there's some self-preservation of not necessarily going up for the posters. I'm sure landing doesn't feel super great. Um, so if this is what we get, I will certainly take it. But I would feel a little bit worse, right? Because I do think while we feel great about the top four of this team, everything else is a question mark right now. So I need the best possible version of the guys I feel best about in order to bring this to a scenario where it's, hey, if we get two guys that step up alongside them and depending on what the night is, it kind of rotates. That might be enough, at least to navigate a round and a half of the playoffs.
I think the take that I'm kind of shaping into is that I'm actually really pretty geeked about this. play from Jarrett because I'm seeing him. Whether it is limitation or self preservation, we're not going to get to know. But the fact that he's like not letting that affect his usage,
Mm.
the fact that he's averaging 16 field goal attempts per 36 in these 4 games, um, still really trusting his touch, really trusting his footwork, trusting his ability to get to the line, and staying aggressive and involved. Like that's kind of what we've wanted, right? Is like,
Yep.
hey, even you don't need to get 6 easy wide open dunks a game to function here. Like you're good enough to be a valued contributor as an offensive player with your touch and length and size alone. Like the
Hmm.
explosiveness is the cherry on top, as far as I'm concerned, with what Jarrett can do, and we're really seeing that from him. So I'm really I think this is actually like about as good as you can expect as compared to just health. Like obviously, if he's just not hurt at all, that's the best scenario. But the fact that if this is what limit looks like, I still feel like in a playoff setting he could play this way.
Oh,
And
I totally agree. Yeah.
and this way is really good. I mean, if you get him up to 26, 27 minutes, and can keep Evan around, the 35, 40 in a postseason setting, well, like now you're back to that 48 minutes of coverage. You're 48 minutes of a pick and roll partner. You're able to, with the emergence of Thomas Bryant, who's just been phenomenal for them, does give you a little bit of like, hey, Jarrett is in good shape, but if we cross him into that 30, 35-minute threshold, the knee
If we can
can't.
keep them at 30 even in the playoffs, we're going to
Yes.
get a better performance out of that. I
And
think,
so if you can
yeah.
do a little bit of padding his minutes at the 5 by pairing Thomas with Evan, because I don't really ever want to see Thomas without Evan in a postseason setting. I just think
Right.
that's too much, and it's more of a roster construction thing than anything. Um, I think like the Cavs need that pairing to happen if you're going to do that in kind of a high stakes environment like that.
Mhm.
But like if you can get 5-10 minutes of that pairing, then all of a sudden Jarrett at 25 to 30 minutes doesn't feel so bad. So I feel like if this is where it lands, I don't feel I the real crux of the question that I probably could have asked from the beginning is like, do you feel doomy that Jarrett's knee isn't all the way better yet? And like I don't feel doomy because
It
of what
does.
he's
Yeah, it
shown.
doesn't. It doesn't pop up
Yeah.
in my
Yeah,
consciousness at
because
all.
of what
I don't
he's
even think
shown.
of it. Yeah, and that's to me the most encouraging thing, right? And on the subject of hey, you just need a couple guys to step up. I think we've had glimpses of that from guys, right? Like I thought Keon Ellis had a really really nice game tonight with 19 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds. Evan certainly doesn't fall in the role player category, but insanely productive game from him in just 25 minutes as well with 24 points and 6 rebounds. Sam got going, which I thought was really significant. Max is looking better on the offensive end. Little bit of a bummer that Tyrese Proctor didn't have a great game because I've liked a lot of his recent minutes. But you're at least getting some valuable contributions, and maybe most surprisingly, Larry Nance Jr. 2 games of looking pretty good, and I think it's significant
And
that
not
he
relying on the 3 to look good.
right. I think it's significant that he played back-to-back nights and looked good physically in both. Brad mentioned on the broadcast that his lower body is finally feeling better. And while I'm not necessarily going to count on it, I'm also not going to write that off as not something. Like it might matter that he's able to give you some spot minutes.
Yeah, I mean, he was a guy that like has been pretty glued to the bench over the course of the season as Naquan emerged, and then even when Naquan took his dip and stopped getting minutes, Kenny was kind of being like, "Well, I gotta just play the 4 guards." And I just think the availability threshold these last couple games maybe like turned the corner and
Yeah.
made him feel comfy going to Larry, and Larry rewarded him with good minutes, good defense.
Which is what you
Uh,
got to ask, right? Like
yeah,
be ready when your number is called on, right?
yeah, beat some solid finishing in this one. Though boy was he dancing with one that was bouncing around the rim that I thought was going to be a dunk. But that's just what it is. I think for him at this point, and so yeah, I thought he really had some very solid minutes, and like all you want from a guy that hasn't played for you pretty much all year is for them to be good enough form for like, oh man, someone's in big foul trouble, or like, hey, we had a game 2 situation against Indy last year, and we've got to play our 13th, 14th, 15th guys just to have a game, and hopefully we'll get everyone back for the next one. Like showing that he can give you a little bit of that is encouraging.
Yeah.
I do want to talk a little bit about Sam.
Yeah. I think that was one of the more important developments of this game.
Because you look at the box score and you go, oh, Sam didn't have that good of a game. He went 7 of 16 from the field, 4 of 11 from 3. Like good volume, but like not crazy efficient. But man, the rim attacks were crazy, and the degree of difficulty was crazy. Like with James and Donovan, and even Max out, like the shot creation for this team was pretty damaged, And he was phenomenal, man.
I think it was yet another showcase of just how far he's come as a player. Like he has really done a lot to round out his game. That shot he hit baseline to beat the shot clock, it was bonkers. Like to be able to kind of create that space in the phone booth, get that shot off and knock it down. I think it just goes to show how much more comfortable he is putting the ball on the floor, creating that space. Like he's just a way more confident, well-rounded player than he's ever been. And to me, it matters because every shooter is going to go through some slumps, right? Where they're just not knocking down those shots. And I think he has elevated his game to a place where it doesn't matter if he's cold. He's a plus when he's out there. He's bringing something to the table no matter what. So
and it just makes me feel so much better in a postseason setting because shooters get game planned out of series a lot. We saw it happen to Kyle Korver. And we didn't see it happen to someone like JR, who generally was able to find some ways to contribute, whether it was from the mid-range, whether it was as a defender, whether it was throwing some of the worst lobs you've ever seen to LeBron James, that LeBron managed to finish because he was a monster. But like you saw that level of diversity in the game, and I think it really matters for this Cavs team that can get a little, specialized, where the guards create, the bigs finish, and the role players shoot. Like you need a little bit of something in between. And like, man, like Ethan Sands, I think wrote a nice piece about the Merrill Strus pairing, and that's a duo that just oozes IQ and shooting and kind of that supplemental playmaking. And you can tell those guys are enjoying playing with each other in a way that is really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, that Friday matchup versus Golden State was, or I guess it was Thursday matchup. All the days run together because it was a long weekend. But that game versus Golden State where we ran out James with Sam, Max, and Jarrett, that is a tremendously fun pairing. And I wish we had Dean or Jalen out there to complete that group. But the sheer amount of basketball IQ, the on and off ball gravity of all of those guys, and Jarrett's ability to just be decisive and throw it down, it rips. I am so excited to see more of that lineup, and I hope we get the opportunity to. I think ideally you're going to want to stagger Sam and Max a little bit just so that you keep that connective playmaking with a variety of different lineups. But I do really, really like that as a possibility.
Doesn't that feel like a start of the fourth quarter lineup where it's like, hey, we need to either maintain connection or like take our lead up a little bit before we go to our closing five? Like that feels like a pairing that's out there for some of those minutes.
And I think the whole, stagger guys so that you kind of balance the rotations and stuff like that, that matters less in the playoffs when the top guys are playing 35 plus minutes, right? Like you can get to,
it's about just finding, you want 48 minutes of lineups you love, and finding another lineup you love is really, really valuable because a lot of teams only have like one or two that they are, obsessed with, and then they're cobbling together the rest of the time. Like having 2 or 3 in our bag would go a really long way.
And particularly ones that are capable of getting as hot as that one is, right? And really punishing teams, because sometimes your ability to take a 12-point lead and in a 2-minute span bring that to 20, that can be the difference between a 5 and 6 game series, right? Or a 6 and 7 game series. And as much as you want to balance rotations, even in the playoffs, and make sure you're not wearing guys out, nothing wears guys out more like an extra game, right? So
Yep.
if you can kind of turn up the minutes and go for the kill, I think you have to do that. So that was one of those lineup combinations that felt significant to me. That hey, we haven't had a chance to really play this together, but in basically the second game that we've ever used that lineup combination, it continued to look really, really good.
Yeah. And the most important thing about the Sam season is I've finally done the work, Justin, and added this drop.
Sammy.
Sammy.
And on that note, we should probably wrap things up, because Sam was awesome. The Cavs, in a weird game, managed to get it done. They turned a big deficit into a big win and clinched home court. Big thanks to everyone tuning in live on YouTube. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the video to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.